All right, today we are diving headfirst into one of the most vivid, most action-packed chapters in the entire Bible, Revelation 12. We're going to unpack an incredible interpretation from Pastor Elvis for church that decodes this cosmic battle between a mysterious woman, her child, and a massive red dragon. So buckle up, let's get right into it. So right out of the gate, the chapter hits you with this incredible, almost cinematic vision. I mean, you've got these huge, powerful symbols lighting up the heavens, a woman who is literally clothed with the sun, about to give birth, and then this terrifying seven-headed dragon just waiting, ready to devour her child. It's epic, it's intense, and believe me, it is packed with meaning. Okay, so you see this wild vision, and you've got to ask, what does it all mean? Is this just some kind of symbolic poetry, or is it a prophetic roadmap for things to come? Well, the interpretation we're walking through today says that every single one of these figures has a very specific identity. And once you know who they are, the whole prophecy starts to click into place. So let's break it down. First things first, before we can get into the action, we've got to figure out who's who in this cosmic drama. According to this view, these aren't just abstract ideas. They are real players in a story that stretches across history and into the future. Let's start with the villain of the story. And honestly, this one's the easy one. There's no mystery here because the text flat out tells us who he is. The great dragon is Satan, that ancient serpent from the Garden of Eden. He's the one pulling the strings and driving all the conflict that's about to unfold. Now, things get really interesting. Who is the woman? You know, a lot of people might immediately think of Mary, the mother of Jesus, or maybe even the church. But this interpretation makes a strong case that she actually represents the entire nation of Israel, the people God chose to carry out his promises through history. And that brings us to a really crucial point. If the woman is Israel, then who is the child she gives birth to? Now, you might think it's Jesus, but this interpretation suggests something different. It says the child isn't one person, but a group of people. The 144,000 saints we read about elsewhere in Revelation, a very special group taken from the nation of Israel. Okay, so let's recap. We've got our cast of characters, Satan is the dragon, the nation of Israel is the woman, and this special group of 144,000 saints is the child. Now that we know who's who, we can get to the first major event, a war that kicks off in heaven, but is going to have absolutely devastating consequences down here on earth. Now, this is super important. The timing of when all this goes down is a huge deal in this interpretation. See, many people think Satan got kicked out of heaven way back in the distant past, but this view argues that this specific event happens right after Jesus' crucifixion. Christ's death on the cross is basically the legal trigger that gives Michael and his angels the green light to finally and forcefully evict the dragon from the heavenly realms for good. So think about this for a second. While all of heaven is celebrating this victory, down here on earth, well, it's a completely different story. It's actually a declaration of woe, of terrible things to come. Why? Because Satan's defeat up there means all of his full, concentrated fury is now unleashed right here, on humanity. And he's angry because he knows his time is running out. So what's the big takeaway here? The war isn't over, not by a long shot. It's just moved. Now that he's confined to Earth, the enraged dragon immediately turns his attention back to his original target, the woman, Israel, who gave birth to that child he hates so much. But just as the dragon is about to pounce, something amazing happens. A miraculous escape. The woman is given 2 wings of a great eagle. This is this powerful image of a swift, supernatural rescue that allows her to flee into the wilderness to a safe place that God has already prepared for her. So you hear wings of a great eagle, and you might wonder, what does that actually mean? Well, there are a couple of ways to look at this. The pastor notes that some people see this as a symbol for a powerful nation, like the United States with its eagle symbol, swooping in to rescue Israel. But he argues that the Bible itself points to something much more personal, that the wings represent God's own direct, divine intervention, a shelter that's not found in a political ally, but in God himself. But the dragon does not give up. The chase is on, and it is relentless. He unleashes what the text calls a flood from his mouth. Now, this isn't literal water. In this interpretation, it's a massive army sent to completely overwhelm and wipe out Israel. But then, another miracle. The very earth itself seems to come to her rescue, opening up and literally swallowing the army whole. It's just another layer of that incredible divine protection. Okay, let's take a breath. What have we seen so far? The dragon's been thrown out of heaven. His main target, the woman, has escaped miraculously. He's been thwarted not once but twice, and this leaves him absolutely furious. So since he can't get to her, he pivots his entire strategy. He turns his rage on a brand new target. And this is where the whole strategy changes. He can't destroy the woman, so the text says the dragon goes to make war with the rest of her offspring. And that right there raises a huge and really important question. So, wait a minute. If the male child was the 144,000 who were delivered, then who in the world are these other children? They're clearly a totally separate group. And thankfully, the text gives us a very precise two-part definition of exactly who they are. The key here, according to this interpretation, is that this final target is a future remnant from Israel that has a really unique identity. The text gives us two very specific clues. Number one, they keep the commandments of God, meaning the law of Moses. And number two, they hold to the testimony of Jesus Christ. They do both. And look, this idea is backed up later in Revelation with this quote right here. It's not one or the other. It's the specific combination of both, a loyalty to God's historic law and faith in Jesus, that defines this group. And it's precisely that combination that makes them the ultimate target of the dragon's rage in the final conflict. So, let's put it all together. This interpretation of Revelation 12 shows us a spiritual war that happens in stages. It starts up in heaven, it moves to an attack on the nation of Israel that fails, and it all culminates in this final, all-out war against a very specific group of believers who hold to both the law and to Jesus. We've basically followed the path of this cosmic conflict. We've seen it move from the heavens down to the earth. We've seen the dragon chase after the woman, Israel, and then, after he fails, pivot his entire focus to a new target. And all of that sets the stage for the final act of this incredible prophecy. Which brings us to our final thought, the big question this interpretation leaves us with. If this prophecy describes a spiritual war that is still happening, a dragon making war on those who keep God's commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus, it forces us to ask, what does that war look like in our world, right now? It's a heavy question, and one this interpretation leaves us to think about.